Not even a year after its launch, the Quest Pro, Meta's flagship best VR headset they have ever made, is dead. According to multiple reports, not a single one will be made after the current stock of components runs out, which of course ushered in a whole new round of VR is dead articles from random outlets, using the Quest Pro as a prime example to prove their point. And you know what? I'm not surprised by any of this. But I do gotta say, I have grown to truly, really love this headset. And this whole situation just has me disappointed. Not that Meta is discontinuing a failure, but I'm disappointed with all the things that led up to that. So today, I want to talk about my experience after using the Quest Pro for the past 9 months. I want to share my journey with it and show how after its very rocky launch, it has turned into something incredible. But I think more important than a 9-month retrospective on a failed VR headset that you probably shouldn't buy, I want to really analyze why this happened in the first place. Look at what mistakes were made so we don't make them in the future, and also explore what I imagine the future of VR looking like after something like this. Because to me, this is a bit of a turning point, and for Meta, I hope an inflection point. But real quick, I did want to say thank you to Factor for sponsoring this video. Especially when I'm working on big video projects like this, Factor just saves me a ton of time with their chef-prepared meals that are delivered directly to you. They're fresh, never frozen, and with just 2 minutes in either the microwave or a few more in the oven, you got a tasty meal ready for you. Recently, I had the Chipotle rubbed pork chop, and it's way tastier than it has any right being, but they also have options for keto, vegan, vegetarian, all of it. And if you go to factor75.com or click the link in the description and use the code ThrillSeeker50 at checkout, you can get 50% off your first box. Again, that's factor75.com and ThrillSeeker50 to get 50% off your first box. Thank you again, Factor, for supporting the channel, but we've got to get back to the video. Okay, so let me start this one off with a bit of history just to set the stage. Following absolutely abysmal sales and bad reviews, the price of the Quest Pro was permanently dropped from its initial price of $1,500 to $1,000 just 4 months into its launch, which definitely made my stomach hurt a bit because my bill when I bought it at launch was $1,830. But I do think it's really important to show you just how bad the sales really were. It's estimated that Meta has only sold approximately 50,000 units in total. That's only 0.2% of the Quest 2 sales. That's a bad ratio. But moving on. I know $1,000 still might sound like a lot, and it is, but I want to frame this headset in the way that Meta should have. This is my current daily driver VR headset, the Big Screen Beyond. It's small, beautiful, and also costs $1,000. But that's for just the headset. You still need a PC for it, and controllers and base stations, and in total, not counting the PC, you're talking about a $1,500 plus investment that only does PC VR. And well, this is the Quest Pro. Now, it also costs $1,000, but it's got eye tracking, face tracking, hand tracking, a built-in processor for standalone, pass-through, self-track controllers, Wi-Fi 6E for wireless PC VR, and if you take this list of features and compare it to any VR headset out there, legitimately any of them, you'll reach the exact same conclusion. There's not a single VR headset out there on the market that does all of this out of the box, especially for the price. And the more I used it, the more I grew to really love it. My Vision Pro UI test from a few weeks back would have been impossible with any other headset. Virtual desktop with Wi-Fi 6E and local dimming is a really good wireless PC VR experience, but I could also do things like hop into standalone VR chat and use the eye tracking and hand tracking without ever touching a PC at all, which is crazy. And the headset's gotten better over time too. Because of the whole system local dimming, the contrast ratios are pretty darn good. Not quite as good as a micro OLED display, but miles better than the Quest 2 or Pico 4. The pancake lenses are also great, the field of view upgrade is pretty nice, and if it's uncomfortable like a lot of people stated early on, there's a litany of third-party top straps to make it wildly more ergonomic. In a lot of ways, the Quest Pro is the closest there is to a non-compromise headset. Every device out there has its downsides: size, features, weight, compatibility, but for an actually competitive price, it is a true jack of all trades. But now there are, of course, a few things that I hate about the Quest Pro, and they could all be traced back to a couple terrible decisions, like the lack of a depth sensor. That one sensor would have done so much for the longevity of this device, and it actually was supposed to be in the headset before getting yanked out just weeks before its launch. Hilariously, the unofficial reason is that someone at Meta noticed it could be used to see through people's clothes, so they panicked last minute and removed it. But the official answer is that they didn't need it on this headset, which I find really weird because Meta's next headset, the Quest 3, does have a depth sensor because they realized they needed it. And if they had this one thing, the pass-through, hand tracking, and play space creation would have been so much better. And one of the other things I hate about the Quest Pro is that the pass-through is embarrassingly bad. There's even a story about a reporter getting so sick, not from a game, but from the Pro's pass-through, that they fell on the floor in a nauseous panic attack. Just really, the lack of a depth sensor and the terrible pass-through are two things that hold back this headset so much long-term. However, to be real, I do not think that the grainy pass-through or lack of a depth sensor is the real reason why the Quest Pro failed. And I also don't think it was because of the original $1,500 price tag either. There are tens of thousands of people that spend way more than that on VR headsets that do less. And I also don't think it was because people complained it was uncomfortable. I do think though that I boiled down the two main reasons why the Quest Pro failed so miserably. And the first one is that Meta practically told everyone to not buy it. Instead of focusing on all the things the Quest Pro does and what people actually want out of it, they did this.
Work. Working in the metaverse.
And yeah, that was from the Quest Pro's announcement. In the metaverse, you can work, because that's exactly what we all want, right? And I know I can't be the only one that watched the Pro's announcement and felt just so off. Every word that was spoken made this headset sound worse and less desirable. And not even from a feature standpoint, but from an ideology standpoint. This announcement was not only dystopian and weirdly out of touch, but it was a flat out lie. Nobody works like this. I mean, Meta can't even get its own employees to work in this fashion. And it has since completely 180'd its entire stance on remote work. And watching this back, I seriously wonder if anybody actually sat Mark down and told him that this version of working in VR isn't anything different from just working, except worse. And then to make it even more sour, the software that came with the Pro just isn't built for any actual professionals that want to work in VR. If Meta actually wanted people to use VR for work, they'd give people a spatial app that allows them to edit in VR with a timeline that's 8 feet long, or a digital audio workspace that allows you to plop synthesizers in your room like a VR garage band. Instead, really the only option, Horizon Workrooms, has a 3-monitor fixed size limit that works in every way you'd expect it not to, with a headset resolution that's just low enough that you'll be squinting to read a Word document. Then the pass-through isn't clear enough to read anything in reality, and most of the promised features from a year ago to make work actually work still haven't properly come yet. To put it simply, this is a terrible work headset. Yet, that's almost the only thing that was focused on. And if it weren't for a third-party application like Immersed, it would be entirely unusable for actual work. But then again, Immersed and all of the workspace applications that are available work on all of the cheaper headsets, so why would anybody actually buy a Quest Pro for work? And the answer is, besides a few, is that they won't. And they obviously didn't. Meta has such a wide reach, and this still failed. And that really, really sucks. Because in my own real world usage, which is not working, but instead playing games or sitting in Unity messing around with eye and hand tracking, or VR chat, or traveling with a solid wireless PC headset, I can say without a doubt that Meta has made an amazing VR headset for doing VR things. But they botched it so hard with a pretentious marketing campaign that left out all the things that are actually enjoyable in VR today. And instead of marketing this as a badass VR headset that does everything you need it to do, they tried to market this to enterprise customers that didn't exist. And this is all while your primary audience, you know, the VR chatters and Pavlov players, are watching the press conference wondering why they're wasting their time. You said it yourself, it's for
Working in the metaverse.
I want you to compare this to Apple. Look, Apple's not perfect, but they do market pretty well. and their own Vision Pro announcement became the top viewed announcement Apple has ever made. And that headset is by all means an enterprise/prosumer headset. But who did they market it to? Consumers. Not because consumers are actually gonna buy it, but because I think Apple trusts people in their own workspaces enough to know that you don't need to tell people in the workplace how they're gonna use your device. The only thing Apple cares about when announcing a new product is to make it look enticing and to let you think all on your own about how you're gonna use it, about how buying this product is going to change your workflow. While Meta, on the other hand, says, here's our metaverse, hop in. But you know, the sad part about Meta's marketing blunder is that in pitching the Quest Pro as a work headset, I don't think they were lying to you. They were lying to themselves. Which brings us to the Quest 3. Probably the biggest reason why the Quest Pro just catastrophically failed. So we all know Quest 3 is coming and it's only a couple months away. We've actually known it's coming since before the Quest Pro even released, which definitely didn't help in the sales departments. And I mean, the Quest 3 at $200 more than the Quest 2 has a few significant improvements, while also being $500 less than the Pro. And the whole lineup gets into a really weird position. At the top of the line, you get all of these crazy features, but in terms of processing power and AR usage, it's already outdated. And I'm sure you can see already that unless you really want face and eye tracking, it would be a silly decision to buy a Pro, which makes me wonder, I know a lot of engineers poured their heart and soul into this device, so why even release it with cut features, an outdated processor, and with a better alternative coming soon? It seems like a waste. And well, after thinking about this really hard, I have two probable answers. Just know these are subjective and entirely my own opinion. My first answer is that Meta really did not want to sell many Quest Pros, which may sound counterintuitive. Why would a company not want to sell millions of headsets? Well, maybe because the Quest Pro is legitimately a privacy nightmare. I know from experience while building apps for the Quest Pro that Meta hasn't exactly figured out a good way to handle eye and face tracking data, which is a big deal. But we all know that face and eye tracking is coming to everything eventually, and they needed a device out in the wild for developers, their own internal testing and SDKs, but also low profile enough that it wouldn't land them into another giant data leak or privacy nightmare that would sour the Meta name. This would also explain the entire reason why eye tracking isn't on the Quest 3. Some people say it's cost, but look, Meta can subsidize anything. If they wanted eye tracking on the Quest 3 for $500, they would have put it in. But maybe they're not ready yet. And this is actually the good guy answer for me. Maybe Meta is really taking these sensitive data points seriously. I just wish they were more transparent about it. Because I think to the people that know what the Quest Pro is and how good of a headset this should have been, it makes us just feel like lab rats and glorified paying testers. But my other answer is probably a bit more likely and a lot less tinfoil hatty. Meta, despite being one of the biggest companies in the world with some of the best engineering and marketing talents available, maybe just has no clue what they're doing. And I'm not saying that I do, very far from it, but a big corporation doesn't act like an individual would, and that can lead to decisions being made entirely in the dark. And maybe this is why Meta is going for the lean approach, to cut out the fat. And maybe, just maybe, Mark never noticed how freaking weird it is to be a billionaire CEO and then go on stage to twist the wonders of VR into a dystopian work-centered matrix. And maybe the Quest Pro was just released when it was because that's when it was ready. And it passed enough check marks from higher ups in the company, all while nobody saw a problem with releasing an expensive piece of hardware that's outdated in a year. Maybe everyone at Meta is looking at the poor sales of the Quest Pro and just thinking, man, that one didn't hit. Guess it's time to focus on the next thing. Look, I don't know any of the real situation. This is all just my thoughts. But it's also the only way that I can make sense of the Quest Pro because it doesn't make any sense. And I think there's just a few things that I took away from this. One, I truly wish that the device I have here in my hands was a Pro version of the Quest 3, not the 2. Because I think with different timing, different marketing, and not having a better headset come out within a year would have made the Pro line do really well. And me and others wouldn't have felt so burnt out of $2,000. I also wish that every mainline headset, so Quest 4, 5, 3, whatever, also has a Pro version for the people that can appreciate and build upon and use those features. 2, I don't know how many times people need to say this, but this isn't it, Mark. Seriously. And 3, things aren't always what they seem. Andrew Bosworth, the CTO of Meta, actually just went on record stating that the Pro line may not be as dead as it sounds, and that Meta will release things when they do. They are the gatekeepers of all the technology. And to that, I urge them to reconsider the way that the company looks at pro-level headsets. There is a market for it, and I think it's really important to build for that market. And I also urge them to reconsider the way that they talk about VR in general. Again, this ain't it. But maybe, rather than build for everyone and end up appealing to no one, I urge you to build for the niche. The masses will come. There are no shortcuts. I could be wrong about that, but it's a principle that I truly believe in, and I wish you adopted it just a little more.